Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Salty Socks, episode 7. This is the episode you guys have been asking for from the beginning. A total... What? They have
It is?
I've been getting requests.
The Last Jedi one was. We only started this channel to talk about this topic tonight.
And you're going to love it. Tonight, we're going to be talking about everything we'd like to see changed in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. We're going to be doing a series of these movies, of these podcasts of the movies. We're going to do all 10. That's the plan so far. So expect more in the future. Episode 2 will be coming out soon. But Sean, let's just jump right into it. Let's start from the very beginning. I'll be honest. The very first few scenes of the movie, to me, and I got a text message from you saying the same thing, I like them. I like all of the stuff on the Trade Federation ship. Nothing needs to be changed there. I see a head nod, right?
I'll just make actually a disclaimer before we even get that far, is that I watched The Phantom Menace for this video, confession here, for the first time in 11 years. I had not seen The Phantom Menace.
That's just crazy.
Since I was 18 years old, I had not watched The Phantom Menace, and that is the longest drought for any of the movies that I've gone without watching. And I was expecting to want to change a lot in this movie, and I texted you afterwards. I'm like, in all honesty,
nothing needs to
I really liked that movie and didn't find a lot that I was like, that definitely needs to be changed. But as I thought more about it, I definitely came up with a more detailed list of some nuances that could be changed. But overall, I actually enjoyed the movie, and a lot of things that people hate on, I didn't find that annoying, and we'll get into that later. But
What did you say?
But yeah, the first sequence of the movie with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan on the Trade Federation ship, all of that I thought was fantastic. Like, it's a good opening sequence to kind of get you engaged in what's going on.
Oh, excuse me.
Can I ask you something real fast, though? Did you realize when you were watching Episode 1 that a new Force ability is shown in that opening sequence?
Okay. Are you asking me, did I know that when I was 10 years old?
Did you know that until about 6 months ago, like myself? I always thought it was a continuity problem with the film until I learned, I'm talking about the Force Dash, away from the destroyer droids.
Stand up, let's go.
Which my understanding is that was not in the theatrical release.
Oh, really?
I thought I watched a thing about that. I don't know. But there are a lot of things that it's hard for me to remember what pre-10-year-old Sean thought about Star Wars before seeing this movie. Like, even just seeing Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, technically this is the first time we're seeing, like, Jedi at the height of the Jedi Order, and how it's kind of supposed to be this master-Padawan relationship.
Uh-huh.
And so all of that is part of my understanding of Star Wars, and I can't really separate that from before I saw Phantom Menace at 10 years old. This is what I thought. It just is part of what I think about Star Wars. It's hard for me to separate. But yes, the Force Dash is interesting because we don't see that in the original trilogy at all.
And I feel like there's a great opportunity for the Force Dash later on in the film that for some reason they don't use. But
yes.
Anyway.
Are you talking about trying to catch up with Maul through the the red force fields? We didn't pre-plan this, people. We are on the same page right now.
That's right. Anyway, new Force ability, Force Dash. I didn't realize till about 6 months ago. Very cool. Okay, so we get the Jedi, get to Naboo, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are separated. Qui-Gon runs into none other than Jar Jar Binks. We're just going to start it off right here, right now. Jar Jar Binks.
Arguably the greatest moment in the movie?
The the moment where I, as a child, knew this is going to be fun. This is cool. While I have talked to other people who said as soon as he showed up, they knew this is going to be garbage. Um, but let's just talk about Jar Jar for a second. And this is my own opinion, can the movie stand without Jar Jar? Yes, of course. And I tried to think about what things Jar Jar does that are critical to the plot of the story, and I came up with two things, only two things. The first one is he introduces the Gungans to the Jedi to help them get to the Naboo, and the second thing is he knows of their hidden city where the Gungans can then draw the droid army out.
Do you know where they are, Jar Jar?
When in trouble, Gungans go to sacred place. Mr. Show you. Come on, Mr. Show you.
Other than that, he doesn't do anything else. He's just comic relief, waste of character, if you ask me.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm planning to spend a little bit of time talking about Jar Jar during this video, if you will indulge me. So, I thought about this first thing. In the original trilogy, what characters were like the comic relief characters? I point to C-3PO mostly.
Right.
R2-D2 a little bit, but R2-D2 is actually very resourceful and needed in the original trilogy. He basically, without R2-D2, the Empire probably wins in the original trilogy. But C-3PO, it's questionable if he's very useful at all, and he's a lot of comedic relief. So I thought about Jar Jar in that way, but C-3PO was infinitely more useful than Jar Jar is in this movie.
So true.
And so
he's not a bumbling idiot, C-3PO.
Yeah, I think all of us understand what Jar Jar was supposed to be. Right. He's supposed to be this comedic relief for kids and like add some fun to the movie, but it doesn't really land.
How rude.
I object. There is no proof.
Darth Jar Jar.
Darth Jar Jar. Listen, I understand that it is a crazy theory, but it is also extremely believable. Extremely believable. And so I need to give you the highlights because I'm sure you read the theory when it came out in 2015, but I'm going to refresh your memory after watching Phantom Menace. Keep in mind, when I read that theory in 2015 about Darth Jar Jar, the last time I had watched Phantom Menace was like 2007 or something. So this is the first time watching it after, and it all fell into place. It is so crazy.
I think we lost half of our viewers as soon as we start talking.
I'm going to walk them through this because for those of you who haven't heard this, it's just going to be like an enlightenment for you. Okay, so first thing, I can't get through this. This is the Reddit post about Darth Jar Jar, by the way. It's like a novel. It is like a dissertation on Jar Jar, the Dark Lord of the Sith, and everyone should go look it up. Maybe I'll leave a link in the description below.
There you go.
But, okay, so here's some things that are odd about Jar Jar. The entire movie, we're supposed to see him as this bumbling idiot that is just clumsy and makes a bunch of mistakes, right?
Yes.
And yet, when he leads Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan to the Gungan city, he executes like a perfect double front flip 720 somersault force jump dive into the water.
He's an aquatic creature. That's what they do.
No. Tell me any other time in any circumstance where we see any Gungans do anything like that. In fact, you could argue in the battle at the end of the movie, none of them are. Why aren't they all flipping around like that? Why aren't they all doing that? If that is just a thing that they can do, all of a sudden, I'm going to leap 20 feet in the air and do a somersault crazy thing. And then every other thing we see Jar Jar, he's this bumbling idiot that steps in poop and gets his tongue caught in an energy binder. But he can pull off some sort of crazy acrobatic move like that. That's weird. That was the Force, baby. Just like your Force dash, we saw a Force jump by Jar Jar. Okay, second thing. We all know, it's very well documented, that the Jedi are modeled after Shaolin monks, all
Right.
right? And their fighting styles are modeled after these monks. Jar Jar,
Meaning George Lucas pulled fighting styles from actual monks into his movies. That's what you mean by that, right?
correct. And Jar Jar clearly, at the Battle of Naboo at the end with the battle droids, clearly is showing the drunken fist wushu style. I'm not even kidding about this. You're telling me that this creature, Jar Jar, this bumbling idiot, with pinpoint accuracy is dumb luck that he becomes a killing machine to these battle droids?
Yes, it is dumb luck. Exactly.
No, it's not. No, it's not. He is flailing all over the place, and every time a blaster shoots, when it gets stuck to his foot, he throws his leg, it shoots a droid. He throws his other leg, it shoots a droidica. He's juggling the bomb ball things, and he throws it, and it hits. It's like, it is insane how accurate. He's a killing machine.
Hands up. My give up. My give up.
All right, and so it's supposed to show that he is using this drunken fist wushu. Okay, there's another thing here. There's a lot of stuff in this thing that I think is actually kind of, I don't know if I believe it. But this quote from George Lucas many times has talked about how he wanted the prequel trilogy to be a mirror of the original trilogy. And this is George Lucas's own quote about Yoda in the original trilogy. He says, Yoda really comes from a tradition in mythological storytelling, fairy tales, of the hero finding a little creature on the side of the road that seems very insignificant and not very important, but who turns out to be the master wizard or the master thing. Huh? So, if we're mirroring this after the original
this
trilogy,
is kind of a big stretch here, but I see where you're going.
who is the Yoda of the original trilogy? It was originally should have been Jar Jar, this insignificant, unimportant character that they didn't think no one thought would be important, and would be revealed later that he would be the ultimate threat. He is the Phantom Menace, all right? It kind of lines up. It does line up.
Are we seriously devoting precious podcast minutes to this theory?
Okay, yes, and I know it's fun. I know that it's all in good fun. I think that there are many arguments against this, but it is fun to talk about. I think it's really funny, and everyone should go look it up because it will somewhat convince you on this.
Oh,
Last thing
Maxie Big the Force.
There are many times like that where he undermines Qui-Gon and mocks Qui-Gon. There are also many times where as he's talking, he's moving his hands, and immediately the person that he's talking to agrees with what he wants them to do. Like he's using a mind trick on them. When Qui-Gon is about to leave and Boss Nass is like, go through the planet core, and then Jar Jar in his handcuffs is like, oh, let me help you, let me come with you.
Any help here would be hot.
Master, we're short on time.
And Qui-Gon immediately stops, goes back to Boss Nass. Qui-Gon just was talking about how he hated this Jar Jar creature. He was unintelligent. And now all of a sudden he's going to go back to Boss Nass and be like, you need to let this Gungan come with me. I'm telling you. I can't go through all of it because we have other things to talk about, but I'm gonna leave a link below to the Reddit theory and to the YouTube video so you can watch the video evidence about some of this stuff because it's fascinating. And I think that there is a chance that George Lucas originally wanted Jar Jar to be Palpatine's master. That's another thing. Jar Jar is always standing next to Palpatine in all three movies. In episode 3, why is Palpatine still hanging out with Jar Jar?
Because Jar Jar's the one that gave him emergency powers.
Yeah, as he mind tricks the entire Senate.
They're both from Naboo.
I declare the Chancellor emergency powers mind trick to everyone. He's the most powerful Sith Lord in the universe.
Oh my gosh, okay. So
all right.
Finish the thought is, because of the backlash with Jar Jar Binks, George Lucas scrapped that idea and
That's
went
the theory.
with...
That is the theory, and I will give it to you that if that is not true, then Jar Jar is completely useless in this movie. But if you want to believe that theory, as you watch the movie, it's infinitely more interesting. Where you're like, what's Jar Jar trying to do here? Who's he trying to deceive here? Oh, he's playing dumb here, but really he knows what's going on.
So really, it's just a fun way to watch the movie and not hate Jar Jar so much. Yeah. I gotcha.
But yeah, going into that, the whole, like, is back to the chronology of the movie. The whole Planet Core scene, I think we're on the same page. Is there? Who cares about that? Unless you want to see Jar Jar undermine the Force and Qui-Gon's lesson on the Force.
And here's what I don't like about the Core. First of all, it's the Star Wars either has great monsters that are so cool, Rancors, Wampas, you name it, or they have terrible monsters that are just like, oh, okay, let's just get on with it. Rathtars, Borgullet, those types of guys. And this one, the Planet Core is just, okay, it's big fish. But then, like, there's always the only redeeming quality of that whole thing is Qui-Gon saying,
There's always a bigger fish.
That is the only thing that's cool about that whole scene. And they, like, reused a monster fish. Like, anyway.
Right, yeah, the whole scene is kind of like, this is just supposed to be like a filler scene, entertainment, the chase scene with the fish to add some suspense, but we don't get much out of it. I agree with you.
Okay, now let's go to Escaping Naboo. This, to me, bothers me when they get onto the Queen's ship. The shiny chrome, very noticeable. Everyone knows the ship that the Queen's in, and she escapes from Naboo, and she is with her handmaidens and everyone, and they're putting up a fight against the battle droids, and they go off into space, and there's a blockade, and only one ship decides to fire upon them.
There's the blockade.
Of the whole planetary blockade, one ship.
That's funny. When you told me about that as we were preparing for this, I realized I didn't even see that. Like, I didn't even notice that but I did when you told me that. I'm like, that is interesting. Like, a little too easy is the escape for them.
And they don't launch any droid fighters. It's just like, cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. And then, like, they literally fly, like, thousands of feet away from the ship itself. And they just fly right past it. And you're just like, huh? It bothers me. I mean, come on, Trade Federation. You guys are freaking cool. Do something.
Because at the end, the space battle at the end, they deploy hundreds of fighters.
Fighters, straight ahead.
Uh-huh.
And so it's interesting that they don't deploy any fighters to chase. And even in the original trilogy, the big ships always deploy fighters to go after the smaller ships. It's a very good observation.
Okay, do you want to take the next point on your list?
I don't know chronologically what the next point is the problem, because I didn't do mine chronologically.
Okay, so my next one is talking about the Handmaiden and Queen Amidala switcheroo. And I know that you disagree with me on this, so let me kind of defend my position before you tear it down. I do not see the point in the switcheroo at all. I don't see why it's necessary for them to switch places, because the reveal happens when they're at the Gungan city, the hidden city, and the scene just doesn't make any sense. Like, the let's just call her Keira Knightley, because that's who she is. Keira Knightley goes up there and says she's the queen and she's gonna, she needs help from the Gungans. And Boss Nass is like, oh no, we're not gonna help, they're too proud, or whatever he says. And then all of a sudden Queen Amidala is like, oh, but I'm actually the queen and we bow to you. And I'm like,
I come before you in peace,
Lusa, all bombard.
because we wish to form an alliance.
Your Honor,
Usa dis.
I am Queen Amidala.
I I ask you to help us. No, I beg you to help us. We are your humble servants.
Like, okay, the switch is cool because you never saw that coming, but what purpose does it serve the story? And then when they're in the throne room at the very end, when they take Newt Gunray hostage, it's like a double reverse switcheroo, because Queen Amidala, who isn't in the queen's dress, takes him, and he's like, oh, and then the fake queen comes up, and he's like, this is an imposter. That's the queen. It's just like, I don't understand.
Your little insurrection is at an end, Your Highness. Time for you to sign the treaty and end this pointless debate in the Senate.
Viceroy, your occupation here has ended.
After her! This one's a decoy!
I have to get so confused. Anyway, what do you think about it?
So I agree with you partly on some of this stuff. One, I like having the decoy queen because I actually think that it does a lot of service for Padme's character development. And as I was watching this, I've said in past videos, of the prequels, I've seen episode 3 the most. So episode 3 Padme is who I'm most familiar with. And it was really refreshing seeing episode 1 Padme. I think episode 1 Padme is the best Padme.
Oh yeah, easily.
She is awesome. She's like an awesome leader. She's super bold with the decisions she's making and like keeps to her convictions and leading her people and things like that. And these much older, more experienced men trying to tell her what to do, she's like shutting them down like, no, we're not doing that. I'm the queen and this is what we're doing.
I will not condone a course of action that will lead us to war.
I'm like, yeah, that's what we're doing, because Padme makes the decisions around here. And so I thought it was super awesome. I love that she always drops her voice 10 octaves whenever she's speaking as the queen to give herself that little extra oomph of authority, that she talks way down low like this. And I'm like, yep, that's the queen voice. I want more Padme queen voice in episode 2 and 3. But I guess at that point she's not the queen anymore, so she wouldn't use that voice. Anyway, I digress. The point is that the decoy queen whole thing works until the Boss Nass scene. So I'll agree with you on that. The Boss Nass scene almost makes the decoy thing trivial at the end, because I think it's such a great thing for character development that Padme as the queen is always where she wants to be. And the anonymity of being a handmaiden allows her to be places that she couldn't be as queen.
You're talking about Tatooine, right?
I'm talking about on Tatooine at the spaceport. And even on Naboo, when they're being arrested by the Trade Federation when they first come, as a protection, she can become anonymous as a handmaiden, even though she's in that group being arrested. But possibly if they move the queen somewhere else, the handmaidens might have less security or whatever. I don't know. The point is that I like that Padme as the queen is very interested in being in positions where she can influence the outcomes of the decisions being made or the situation. That's why she wanted to go to Mos Espa spaceport with Qui-Gon. That's why she came out and Captain Panaka is like, it's the queen wishes it or whatever. And it's like, yeah, Padme's going to go because she wants to make sure that the best outcome for her people happens, and she wants to have influence over that. So I like the whole decoy thing because I think it's really interesting character development for Padme. We see once they get to Coruscant, she's back to being queen because that now is the most influential position she can be in.
Why does the decoy need to be... Why can't she just be in handmaid's dress, but knowledge to Panaka and Qui-Gon and the party going into Mos Eisley that she is actually the queen? Why does she need to have this persona as the handmaiden? Because she can't do anything as the handmaiden. The decisions that Qui-Gon is making, she can't do anything about. She just has to say, well, the queen, or I don't approve, and he's like, the queen's not here.
The queen will not approve. Queen doesn't need to know.
Well, I don't approve.
You know?
I think that it just goes back to the anonymity. That if it's possible that if she said, yeah, I'm actually the queen, that they would have been more adamant about, no, you can't come.
Wouldn't have taken her to a junkyard, you mean, and
right.
a slave's
So it's very
house.
much a possibility. I think Padme is smart, and I think that she knows that under the anonymity of a handmaid, I keep using that word, but under the anonymity of being a handmaiden, she will see more and hear more than she would if she was traveling as the Queen of Naboo in that party.
Okay, I can see that, yeah.
So, anyway, I like the decoy thing, but once we get to the Gungan scene, that's where I feel like the payoff isn't there because, to your point, what she does, the decoy could have just done.
Uh-huh.
And so at that point, it broke down for me, and I questioned, how much does the decoy actually know about what Padme wants her to do or say? Or is she just winging it and hoping, I hope Padme's okay with this, that I'm saying this right now. And that's when Padme was like, you're screwing this up. Like, I'm getting to get in here, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, did Boss Nass appreciate the trickery? Is that what led him to kind of turn and be like, oh, I do like you guys?
So while we're talking about things that we would change, that scene needed to be changed to Padme. There needed to be something the Gungans would not have helped unless something happened that legitimately only the Queen knew about or could do, and that would have had to be set up for then Padme to break her cover and say, since I am the only one that can do this or knows this important piece of knowledge about our relationship, I'm going to have to break my cover, instead of we serve you and kneel down. Like, well, the decoy could have done that. So that's not, why did you decide then was the right time to break your cover?
So that's, yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. I can appreciate your point of her anonymity going into Mos Eisley, and even, I guess, on Coruscant too, she's...
Wait, it's not Mos Eisley, Joseph. Gotcha.
What is it?
It's Mos Espa.
It's not Mos Eisley?
The spaceport in episode 1 is not Mos Eisley. You wrote this down in your email notes to me too, and I corrected you there, trying to save you the humiliation. Well, now you're humiliated, all right? You don't know anything about Star Wars.
Holy freak.
It's not Mos Eisley. It is a completely different spaceport.
Huh. Is it set in the movie?
I don't think so.
Or is this like a visual dictionary sort of thing?
I think it's a visual dictionary sort of thing.
Well, darn it!
So
Should I even be doing this podcast anymore?
So you're probably not a fan of Star Wars anymore, right?
That is so funny. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to look that up. I don't think you're right. You probably are. Let's go on to Anakin.
Okay.
Padme meeting Anakin. It's weird. We've talked about this before. The age difference is weird. I think she's, 14?
She's supposed to be 14, and he is supposed to be 9.
That's weird. That does not follow the double your age or divide by 2 add 7 rule. Because divide by 2 is 7, plus 7 is 14. She can only date a 14-year-old, not a 9-year-old. I think we both agree, though, that Anakin should be older in this movie. I think he's fine. I mean, if he's older in this one, he's going to be a little bit older in the next 2 as well. And I don't have a problem with his age in the next 2. But this one his age causes a lot of uneasiness on my end.
Yeah, so this is probably the biggest change that I would make with episode 1 is that Anakin would not be a 9-year-old. But that would subsequently have to change a lot of things about this movie. If he wasn't a 9-year-old, I would say he would need to already be a Padawan or in the Jedi Order. Because any older, and then you start to break the continuity of the Jedi don't take 15-year-olds into the Jedi Order.
But
Same
they
thing
already
with,
said they're not going to take Anakin because he's already too old. They already break that rule as a 9-year-old. Why can't they break that rule as a 12 or 13-year-old, right?
I guess that's possible. For my changes to the movie, I would have Anakin already in the Jedi Order to just skip over all of that whole thing, which would mean you would have to rework the entire introduction to him of being a slave and the pod race and Qui-Gon winning him and all that kind of stuff. Also, I think the older you make Anakin, I would assume the more aware he's going to become of his Force sensitivity, that he realizes I can do things that other people can't do. And so if they roll up on a 15-year-old slave who doesn't want to be a slave anymore, maybe, I don't know. It seems like he would have had a better chance to have already escaped.
That's what I would have liked, is if they roll up on a 13, 14-year-old kid who's kind of already experimenting with the Force, just doesn't know what it is, but has so much Force power, he's doing things, and Qui-Gon's like... Qui-Gon doesn't... First of all, you don't have to do the midichlorian blood test, which scraps that whole nightmare out of the movie.
I need a midichlorian count.
And two, it kind of is like, oh, this kid already has powers, and he hasn't been trained, and he knows how to use them. This kid's legit. Like, he knows what he's doing. And it kind of gives more to the idea of how powerful Anakin is, right? He really is. He really was conceived by the Force, so much so that he's just doing things, and he doesn't really know how he's doing it.
Yeah. So a couple of things more with Anakin. One, that I'm thinking about this and hearing you talk about it, that I do like that idea better instead of my idea of him already being in the Order. Because if he was already in the Order, we would lose Shmi Skywalker, his mom, which I love. I think she's a great part of the movie, especially in episode 1 and episode 2, in kind of shaping Anakin's journey. Obviously, as his mother, she appropriately would have the most influence over him. And so, I really like her in Phantom Menace and appreciate her interactions with Anakin, even though I think there should have been more of her mentorship and mothering of Anakin in the movie. The other thing is this relationship with Padme. Watching it for the first time in a long time, I didn't think that there was much flirting that happened at all on Padme's part. I feel like Padme did not treat him like a love interest in the least. She is like not focused on that. She's focused on her mission to like save her people and free her people. I didn't see one scene that I thought, why is Padme flirting with a 9-year-old? It doesn't happen. Anakin makes the comment in Watto's junk shop, "Are you an angel?" And Padme more treats him like a kind of like a weird little kid, like, what? Like smiling at him like, what are you talking about?
Are you an angel? What?
And then I don't know. I just feel like any other time.
Okay, I agree. There's no like flirting going on. She gives him this weird look at that celebration, and it's just like. Anyway, I agree. There's not a lot of flirting going on.
I think you might be reading into that look a little bit. I don't see anything weird about their relationship, other than Anakin saying a couple of things, but Padme is never like reciprocal of some romantic flirtation or anything. In fact, when we get to episode 2, we'll see their first time they meet in a while. Yeah. Padme still is like not into Anakin.
It's little Annie, right?
Yeah. So a lot I feel like is made about that, like, oh, she's a 14-year-old, he's a 9-year-old, this is weird, they're supposed to be in love. I'm like, there's nothing in episode 1 that makes me think that they're supposed to be romantically involved. But anyway.
We as an audience know that they're going to get together.
Correct.
And so that is still weird.
Correct. Okay, let's move on. I want to talk about Obi-Wan a little bit.
Obi-Wan, yep.
So while
it
we're
to
on
me.
Tatooine, Obi-Wan sits in that Naboo cruiser doing nothing. Absolutely useless. And I understand, I love Qui-Gon, and I understand that it's kind of Qui-Gon's movie in terms of being the Jedi of the movie is Qui-Gon by far. And I'm okay with that. But while we talk about Anakin and Obi-Wan, I wish we would have gotten more Obi-Wan and Anakin interaction and that they would have had a lot of chemistry. I do not like that their relationship starts with
A handshake?
a handshake.
Anakin Skywalker, meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Hi. You're a Jedi too? Pleased to meet you.
And Obi-Wan kind of is like only training him because Qui-Gon wanted him to, and Anakin has mostly bonded with Qui-Gon, not with Obi-Wan. So Anakin's not like, yeah, I really look up to Obi-Wan and want to be trained by him. There's like no chemistry or connection at all by the end of the movie, and I don't like that. I wanted their relationship to be like right off the bat, they hit it off. They have a lot of chemistry, and they really kind of grow to like each other over the course of the movie, and that just doesn't happen. And so Obi-Wan is kind of he's in the movie, but he's kind of a non-factor until the duel with Darth Maul.
Right. And I went so far as to say Obi-Wan should be the main character of the prequels. And that's kind of a big thing to say, I know, but I feel like it should be Obi-Wan's movies. He should be the character that goes with Qui-Gon into Mos Espa. Is that what it's called?
That's correct.
And I agree. When he and Anakin meet, it should be like instant, like they just get each other. And it would make sense because in the end he said, you were, on the volcano of Mustafar, he says, you were my brother. If Anakin's a little bit older and Obi-Wan's still the same age, they kind of are kind of brothers. And it would add this dynamic of, instead of like this really kind of older Jedi and this Padawan, kind of more even. One's just more trained. The other one has more power, just as untrained. And they really are brothers in that sense.
So I agree with that. I would love to see that. I was also thinking, maybe Obi-Wan didn't need to be a Padawan in this movie, and we didn't have to have a Qui-Gon training Obi-Wan, but maybe Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan were just a partnership.
Jedi Knights.
Two Jedi Knights paired up together to be ambassadors at the beginning of the movie for the Supreme Chancellor, and then it would give a little more legitimacy to Obi-Wan training Anakin at the end of the movie, because I really don't like that Obi-Wan is a Padawan this whole movie, and then at the end of the movie it's like, he passed the trials, he's a Jedi Knight, first order of business, take a Padawan. Don't you think that the Jedi Knights, when they're first like ordained or whatever they're dubbed, Jedi Knights, I don't know what the name is, conferred the knighthood, that they should have a few years before they just immediately turn around and train somebody? Like, shouldn't the Jedi Masters be training the Padawans? So I understand that the whole thing's unorthodox anyway, because Anakin wasn't supposed to be trained and the council kind of was on the fence about it. But then the council does approve it, only Yoda is the one that's in opposition at the end of the movie.
But agree with your taking this boy as your Padawan learner? I do not.
But I just think the relationship with Obi-Wan and Anakin totally needs to be reworked in Episode 1.
Yes, I agree. Okay, pod racing, get rid of it.
I actually really like pod racing. We've talked about this before. You want to get rid of it. I want to keep it. It doesn't do a lot for the plot, but I think it's fun. The last thing on Tatooine, Anakin being the creator of C-3PO.
Fan service that I hate.
I actually think for a long time in my life, questioned, why did they even put C-3PO and R2-D2 in the trilogy? They shouldn't have even been in it. Like, I understand they wanted to have some connective tissue to the original trilogy, but I think both C-3PO and R2-D2 are the original trilogy versions of them are better than their prequel trilogy versions, and the prequel trilogy versions kind of diminish the character overall for
I
me.
agree. Yep.
I beg your pardon, but what do you mean, naked? My parts are showing. My goodness.
For both of them. And so I could have done completely without C-3PO and R2-D2 in the prequel trilogy. So
And it still doesn't make sense. They wipe C-3PO's mind, but they don't wipe R2's. But R2 and Darth Vader... What? Anyway. But yeah, C-3PO being the... created by Anakin is useless. Midichlorians we talked about. We can get rid of it if Anakin already shows his Force powers. And there's other ways to sense the Force. You don't need to do a blood test, like a pregnancy test. Oh, did it turn positive? Is there a plus sign? Oh. Anyway. Over.
I agree.
That's even higher than Master Yoda's. Okay, off to Coruscant. I think when we talk about the prequels and things people don't like about the prequels, a very common thread is the politics and the amount of politics in the movie. And I can agree with that in certain parts. Politics, though, is important to some of these movies in that it sets up the Galactic Empire. What I don't like about the politics is the procedural kind of point of orders and making motions and the Trade Federation coming down and saying objection and all this kind of like, okay, we don't need to see the minutia of the Senate.
The chair does not recognize the senator from the Trade Federation at this time.
Congress of Malastare concurs with the honorable delegate from the Trade Federation.
Will you defer your motion to allow a commission to explore the validity of your accusations?
We need to see the key hit points, right?
Yeah, I actually disagree a little bit on this one. I like the politics. I feel like it kind of gives you more world building and kind of immerses you a little bit more, because it'd be weird if they didn't show that, because then you'd be like, this massive galaxy, how are they keeping order if they don't have detailed processes for how this stuff is supposed to work? And so I don't mind it, but I do understand why people don't like it, because it's kind of like I'm not trying to watch Law and Order here. I'm trying to watch a Star Wars movie. But I think that the politics question in Episode 1 specifically, I think it was a misstep, because the plot overall for Episode 1 is really narrow to me. It basically is a trade dispute that turns into an invasion of Naboo, that turns into senatorial proceedings to try to rectify that invasion that ended up not happening, like nothing happens. But I guess it just shows its purpose is to show Palpatine's rise to power. But I think a big change that could have happened in Episode 1 is that not be the overall plot, and instead the overall plot be more Force-driven. What is the Jedi Order and the Jedi Council up to? What are they trying to do? Are they looking? I wanted it to think it should be more of the prophecy of the Chosen One. What are they doing in terms of trying to find the Chosen One or whatever?
And maybe there's whisperings of a Sith coming back, and they're trying to discover who the Sith is.
Yeah, so I think that the politics in Star Wars, I enjoy it, but I understand why people don't like it. But the whole Coruscant section is kind of like, all right, like just moving the plot along, and let's get back to the action.
That's right. Act 3 of the movie, we head back to Naboo. We've talked about the switcheroo with the Gungans. This is what I would have liked to... Okay, so...
We see Darth Jar Jar do a mind trick on Boss Nass to get promoted to General, Bombad General. Just that in there.
So, we shall make you Bombad General.
General?
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 We have... Okay, hold on. We have Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon with Darth Maul fighting. We have the Queen going through not the castle. What is it called there? The
palace.
The palace. Palace. Thank you. We have Anakin and the Snowy Starfighters up in space, and we have the Gungans and the planes. Four different storylines, right? All happening at once, cutting in between all of them. The famous line of George Lucas is after the first cut was shown. He said, "What was it?" He said,
"I may have gone too far.
I may have gone too far.
I may have gone too far in a few places."
I agree with him. And if I could go back to 1998, George Lucas, I would say, good on ya. Now, how can we change this to make this ending better? Because there are so many things, and there's so many good things that the good things get weighed down by all the other stuff. This is
the
what
pacing is off, and so the good moments are lost in the shuffle because the pacing is like we're cutting between 4 pretty action-packed storylines. I feel like the least action-packed is Padme's running through the palace, but the Darth Maul duel is obviously very intense. The space battle is very intense, and the Gungan battle is like, I mean, there's a lot going on, but it's not as emotionally intense, I don't think.
So what I would have liked to see, and I kind of came up with this when I was watching this movie, I feel like the point of the Gungans fighting the battle droids, I feel like George was going for this primitive sort of race living in the swamps could take on this technologically superior droid army, right? What I would have liked to see is a different approach where 2 different people, the Naboo and the Gungans, work together and they do an attack on the palace together as one cohesive unit. That would save, then, instead of 4 storylines, 3, if the Gungans are there with them. And it could also still kind of get the same idea that the Gungans, even though they're kind of seen as this very primitive race, can still hold their own.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, because the Padme storyline and the Gungan storyline are
the weakest 2.
The weakest ones, the least interesting of the 4. To me, the most interesting, obviously, is by far the Darth Maul duel.
Yes.
And so I want to save that for last. So let's go to the space battle then. The space battle, I think, is good, but not exactly what I think we needed to see. I feel like we needed to see more of Anakin's unbridled force abilities in his flying skill and things like that.
Yes.
We just see him on autopilot for a while, and then him, spinning's a good trick.
I'll try spinning. That's a good trick.
And a lot of stuff like that, and I'm like, could we see like not to use an episode 7 term, but an awakening of his force abilities where all of a sudden he can like really fly this ship and become a pilot and kind of turn the tide of the battle for the N1 starfighters, because they're drastically outnumbered.
Right. And the fact that he takes down the Federation ship by pure happenstance bothers me the most. It just so happens he gets shot and flies into the hangar. And it just so happens he accidentally cranks the thing back and fires the ion torpedoes instead of the regular. Like,
this!
The whole point of this is to show Anakin's skills, but instead you're doing him a disservice by showing him, we're spinning, or I got hit, we're overheated, R2,
I contend that he's actually using the flying style of Drunken Fist Wushu, and is he's pretending to be clumsy because he's learned it from his new master, Darth Jar Jar.
Right.
No, I agree with you. Was it happenstance or was it the will of the Force that he ended up in that hangar and
You're
shot
telling me
that?
Jar Jar's controlling all of that from the plains of Naboo?
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We needed to see more intentional abilities and skill from Anakin.
Yes.
In the space battle. But overall, I mean, the space battle is okay. I don't hate it.
Oh, I love it. First of all, I love the N1 starfighters. Those things are legit.
Yeah.
And also, I love the battle droids. The whole scene where they come out of the transports and they unfold and that's very cool. But it also could have happened in feed. Anyway.
Okay, Joseph, we've come to the climax of the movie.
Here we go.
And I think this will be the end of the discussion as well, because I think this is getting a little lengthy. But the duel with Darth Maul, between Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon Jinn, would you change anything about this scene?
Yes. Yes, I would.
What?
One big thing. And I think a lot of people agree. Darth Maul should not have died. He should have killed Qui-Gon. I don't mind that.
He didn't, Joseph. He didn't die, okay? He survived and he became an integral part of the Clone Wars animated series.
Thank you, Squidward. But he does not show up in any more of the prequel movies. He's no longer the villain. If he had killed Qui-Gon in front of Obi-Wan, that's all the same. Everything up to that's the same. But then Obi-Wan and him start fighting. He sees that Obi-Wan can overpower him because Obi-Wan's tapping into the dark side to overtake Darth Maul, and Darth Maul escapes and is a villain for the next 2 movies, ultimately so much better than General Grievous and Count Dooku.
So I agree with you, big picture, but I disagree with how we should get there. So big picture, I 100% agree. Darth Maul needed to survive. He needs to be the villain with Palpatine, that tandem through the entire trilogy. Dooku is like this weird, shoehorned character that doesn't make sense, even though Christopher Lee, who plays him, is kind of awesome and does
Fantastic,
a good job.
Yeah, you can't argue with the acting.
Really good performance, but the overall arc, how it fits in, it doesn't. I don't know. I don't like it. Darth Maul needed to be the villain of all 3 movies. So my proposed change for this scene, the duel in Episode 1, would be he kills Qui-Gon. Obi-Wan comes in, all hot-headed like he does in the current movie, and Darth Maul clearly is superior to Obi-Wan. If he just killed Qui-Gon, he's better than Obi-Wan. Come on. I think it is just not a good move that Obi-Wan kills Darth Maul after Darth Maul just gutted Qui-Gon.
True.
How did that happen? And so what I think should have happened is Darth Maul defeats Obi-Wan by force pushing him into the pit or kicking him into the pit or whatever, and Obi-Wan falling. And this could be like an homage to Empire Strikes Back with Luke falling in Cloud City and going into one of those tunnel tube things and then going into a garbage chute or something. That pit didn't have to be a bottomless pit that you die at the bottom of it. It could be that you go down and Obi-Wan just falls, and obviously Darth Maul isn't going to pursue him jumping down the hole. And so I think it should have clearly been the buildup of when Obi-Wan and Darth Maul meet in Episode 1, Darth Maul is clearly superior. Then I would have liked to see in Episode 2 them meet again where they're evenly matched and it's a stalemate. And then in Episode 3 see Obi-Wan kill Darth Maul and it be this buildup of their relationship. Because in the Clone Wars animated series and in the Rebels cartoon, the Maul-Kenobi relationship is still very much a thing. And Darth Maul's consumed with getting revenge on Obi-Wan Kenobi. I would have liked to see that over these 3 movies, their relationship and their duels that could build up and build up and build up. Similar to what we see with Luke and Vader in the original trilogy.
Sure, I agree. I think it's an excellent point. And I don't have anything else other than that. Oh, wait. One more thing. Something that's always bothered me.
I have one more question after you go.
We're in the Jedi Council room. Anakin's doing a test. Mace Windu has a little mirror-looking thing with different shapes showing up on it. And Anakin is telling him what each thing is, proving that he has the Force. Mace Windu looks at it, he completes the test. Mace Windu then looks to Yoda and nods.
Speeder.
As if to say, yes, he got them all right. Wouldn't Yoda already know that he got them all right? I'm just saying. Yoda's a Jedi Master. Yoda can also be sensing what Mace Windu sees. Doesn't need the head nod. Doesn't need the head nod. Nope. I hate it.
I wonder why they never show that Anakin is actually seeing the reflection of the screen in the window behind Mace Windu, and so that's how he's guessing it all right.
A cup. A ship.
Speeder? I can see it all in the window.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I feel like little stuff like that doesn't bother me. But
okay, what's your
my last
question
for you is, because I'm into the names of each of the episodes, in your opinion, who is the Phantom Menace?
I've never thought about this question before because I've always just thought it was Darth Maul.
I think you can argue Darth Maul, or is it Palpatine who's the Phantom Menace? Or is it not any one person, it's just the Sith? That the Jedi don't think that the Sith are extinct, and so the Phantom Menace is that the Sith are right under their nose and they don't know it. It's very nuanced.
Or is it Jar Jar Binks?
Or is it Darth Jar Jar? Full circle. Full circle. It is Darth Jar Jar, Dark Lord of the Sith, Master to Palpatine, Puppet Master of the entire Galactic Republic.
Okay, Sean. So you have some homework now to do, right? Well, I guess we both do. We got to watch episode 2 now.
Got to watch episode 2. We really want to hear from you guys what you would change about episode 1. It was actually really fun rewatching this movie with that question in mind of how would I change this, because it gave kind of an added motivation in watching it of like, ooh, what do I think about that? And it kind of helped me break it down on a deeper level. So let us know in the comments below. Did you like what we changed about the movie? Do you think we should have said something else or changed other things? What parts of the movie do you think don't make sense, and which parts of the movie would you change? All of that good stuff. We always like hearing what you have to say, because honestly, I always learn from you, Joseph. You always have a take that I'm like, I've never thought of that in my life. And then in the comments, every time we post a video, I always read something in the comments, and I'm like, that's a good point. I've never thought of that.
I know, right?
So keep the comments coming, people. We appreciate them.
Okay, and until next time, everyone, just remember to keep those socks salty!
Keep them salty, people.
See ya.